Hello, all the nerds out there. I hope you all are doing fine. And guess what? We are going to talk about logical reasoning. As I told you, it's just an introduction session that what we are going to study in our syllabus, right? And as you can see over your screen, we are going to have a complete introduction on logical reasoning. As you can see over your screen, we have complete topics here and we are going to have dedicated session on each topic. So I hope you all are ready. Today is just an introduction. We'll start with understanding the structure of argument, which kind of involves analyzing how premises and conclusion are connected, especially to the form logical reasoning. And we'll also talk about premises, which is very important in logical reasoning. And premises are just like statements or claim which put forward as evidence or reasons to support a conclusion, right? I hope you got the idea what we are gonna talk about. And they also provide the basis for the argument and are intended to provide support or justification for the conclusion, right? And premises can be single statement or a series of a statement. We'll just look what all are these, and we'll be talking about also, like for example, as you can see over your screen, we have premise 1, like all mammals are warm-blooded animals, and second premise says dolphins are mammals, and what conclusion is therefore dolphins are warm-blooded animal. I just put it to just show you how these premises and how does it look like, right? And in our next video we'll also talk about like difference between inference and conclusion. Inference is just a process of drawing logical conclusion or making reasoned judgment based on evidence, reasoning or pattern of information, and conclusion is just the final outcome or results of an argument or reasoning process. It is the specific proposition or claim that is derived or reached after considering the evidence, which is your premises, right? And then we draw a conclusion. Like here again in the screen I have given example to just show you how we inference and how we conclude, right? As you can see over your screen, I have given some example. Like in premise 1 it says like all birds have feathers, and premise 2 is what penguins are bird. So inference is what penguins have feathers, right? So that is your inference. And with the same happens with the conclusion also. Like here you see premise 1 says all politicians are corrupt, and premise 2 says John is a politician, and how we conclude that if both are true then John is also corrupt, right? I'm just giving you just examples to to let you know what are the premises, what is inference and what is conclusion. And in our next session we'll talk about the structure, and which is very important. We'll also talk about deductive argument, inductive argument, assumption, hypothetical syllogism, and then disjunctive syllogism. And they are so important that sometime you get question based on that. And trust me, we'll complete every single stuff in logical reasoning, so you don't have to worry about. We'll have only 4 to 5 sessions and we'll complete logical reasoning, and that will be enough to get you at least 4 correct answers, right? And we'll also talk about here, like you see, structure of categorical proposition. And in that, what is a structure? They are made out of what? Subject, predicate, copula or quantity, and modality. Like here you see example. As you know, when we talk about all, like all cats are mammals, this is what? Universal affirmative, and we denote it as A. And if it is a complete opposite like universal negative, we denote with E. And like here, no birds are fish, this is just universal negative. And then we'll also talk about particular affirmative, which we denote as I, which is like some students are diligent. Where there is word like some, it is particular affirmative. And then we talk about negative, like some flowers are not red, this is particular negative and we represent it as O. Fine. Like here you see, so here you have to find out which is subject, which is predicate, which is copula and quantity, right? So like here, all birds have feathers. So this birds is your subject, right? And then predicate is what? Feather. Then we have capula means have, right? And quantity and modality is just what? Universal affirmative, that all, or it can be no birds, and it can also be some students or some flowers, right? So this is all about a structure of categorical proposition, and we'll talk about this also in detail in our next session. And then like here you see, I have just given one table here so you will understand. Like here is categorical proposition, like all cats are mammal, no birds are fish, and some students are diligent, some flowers are not red, right? So in all cats are mammal, what is the subject here? Cats. And what is capula, which is are, it can be have or it can be is, all these stuff, right? And predicate is what? Mammals at the end. And of course, what is quantity, which is kind of all, no, some and some not, right? So this will be your quantity. Like again in another example you see no birds are fish. So here what is subject? Birds. And what is copula here is are. And then what is predicate? At the end you always get it, mostly is fish, right? And again universal negative it is called. And then we have like particular affirmative, and here what is the subject here? Students. And then what is the copula? Are. Similarly predicate here diligent, right? And again when we talk about particular negative, we represent it as O. Some, like here, some flowers are not red. So subject is what? Flowers. And copula is what? Are not, right? And predicate here is red. So through this particular table you'll understand what kind of elements are there in one or two premises. And right, so anyway, that was another table, and I'm gonna show you another table here, mood and figure, which is equally important because that defines when you conclude. So these terms are quite important. Like in premise 1 you see all cats are mammals, right? And premise 2 says some mammals are dogs, and conclusion what? Some cats are dogs, right? So this is just example, and here as you can see in your table we have the term. So remember every premises have these terms like middle term, major term and minor term. And middle term is what? The term that appears in both premises. Like you see in the statement, like cats, you see cats are in the premise 1 and the conclusion, right? So in two statements we find cats are there. And major term is what? The term that appears as the predicate in the conclusion. So when it appears in conclusion, that is predicate. Like here mammals. So mammals are what? Here in premise 2 is major term. And then we have minor term. Minor term is what? The term that appears as the subject in the conclusion. So here cats are what? Here minor term. So that we'll discuss in detail anyway. I just wanted to show you that what we're gonna study. Anyway, when another we have like immediate inference. It's very important these days because in exam, like 2 questions, being asked every single time. Usually they ask 1 question, but for the past like 3 years, they have been asking like 2 questions from immediate inference. And it's very important. Last time they have asked 1 question based on immediate inference. It is not mentioned in the syllabus, but it equally important. So what is simply this table you see now, through that you can get inference immediately, and you can just find out what are there. Like I'll just talk about this in our session, that how you can draw this particular table and how you can use it in exam. And it's very easy to make, and it's like you can solve these immediate inferences type question in just like less than 30 seconds. It's very easy, and I'll show you how it is in our next session. Anyway, let me tell you, immediate inference is what? It refers to a logical deduction or conclusion that can be directly drawn from a given proposition or a statement without the need for additional premises or argument. And they are called immediate because they involve a direct and immediate application of logical rules or transformation to the original proposition, right? And I'll show you some questions also when we talk about this session in our next video, right? So that is very important. I find this particular table, I found it in another video on YouTube, and that is really helpful and very useful, and that you should remember. But anyway, we'll talk about it later. Then we'll also talk about square of opposition. In a square of opposition, you have like a square kind of figure. We have like contrary, subaltern, subcontrary, and contradictory. We'll talk about this in detail in our session on a square of opposition. So here I'm just giving you the surface here that you'll just know what we are going to study in this particular unit, which is unit 6, right? And contrary, you can see, is between A and E, which is like universal, affirmative, and then positive. All these stuff are there that we'll talk about in our session. And even in next, we'll also talk about formal and informal fallacies. Every time one question you are getting, and mostly you get question from where? This informal fallacy usually. So just to understand the formal fallacy, it is kind of errors in logical structure or form. They occur when the reasoning violates the rules of deductive logic regardless of the content or meaning of the statement, right? And we'll also talk about informal fallacy, which is very important, and one question only comes from this particular topic, informal fallacy. There we'll talk about like homonym attacks, straw man argument, false cause fallacies, and other like appeal to emotion, all this stuff. And what is informal fallacy? It is errors in reasoning that occur due to flaws in the content, context, or language used in the argument. And we'll also talk about Venn diagram, very important, and sometimes they ask question based on that also. We'll also talk about simple and multiple use for establishing validity of argument. It will have another session. Anyway, and most important these days are like Indian logic. This topic is like 2 questions you are definitely going to get every time in past. Like last time they have asked I think 3 questions from Indian logic. In Indian logic, we'll talk about pramanas like pratyaksha, which is perception. Then we'll talk about anumana, in English it's inference, and upmana like comparison. Then we'll have like shabda, which is verbal testimony. Then we'll talk about arthapati, which is implication, and anupalabdhi, which is non-apprehension, right? We'll also talk about the structure and kinds of anumana, like in like all the inference. And we'll also talk about vyapti, invariable relation, and it will have a very long session that you should definitely attend because you are going to get 2 questions based on that, right? And here also in Indian logic there is fallacy, which is known as hitubhasa, right? So guys, that's all for the logical reasoning, and it is, as I told you, it's an introductory session. I just wanted to let you know what things are there in our syllabus, and from our next video we'll talk about everything in detail. So in 5 sessions we'll try to finish logical reasoning, and trust me, those 5 videos will be like gold mine for you. You'll get all 4 questions. And for me, I never make mistake in logical reasoning. So when I attend question, because it's so easy and it's like 100% marks you're getting. It's no confusion, not at all. If you're getting it correct, you'll get the full mark. And this is very easy also, not so big. It can be finish in 1 day also, and you'll get like 5 questions. And there are some formulas, there are some tables that you should remember, and that will definitely help you to tackle all these kinds of questions in the exam. So I hope you all are excited. So we'll start this session from tomorrow, or maybe we'll have a couple of more introductory session on other units, like we have ITC, we have people in environment and higher education. All this stuff will have one introductory session, so you'll know what things are there in your syllabus, right? And that's all, guys. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next session. So have a good day, and don't forget to subscribe the channel if you really want more. Right? Thank you so much. Have a good day.